I have a really hard time picking which storyline I wanted to actually write, so I just decided let's do it all. We really wanted to focus on replayability. You come into the bar space where you're going to meet a character behind a bar who's going to give you your orientation, but to explain to you the rules of the world. You walk into this bar where the time and space is broken, and so I think if people are coming back having played the New York version, I think they're going to be in for a surprise. Yeah, they can go to www.doorsofdivergence.com and you can buy tickets right there, right now, starting today.
Welcome back to the Attractions Insights podcast, where we sit down with the creators, operators, and visionaries shaping the future of immersive entertainment. Today, we are traveling to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'm joined by Christian Vernon, creative director of Doors of Divergence. Doors of Divergence is known for its live actors, meaningful player choices, and branching narrative design. And it first gained a major attention during its New York run, where it earned early recognition from the TERPECA Awards. And Christian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Christian, for anyone who's been following the story of Doors of Divergence, it almost feels like a Phoenix Rising moment.
It feels that way from the inside as well. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, because when you closed, a lot of people were left wondering what happened, why it ended so suddenly, and whether Doors of Divergence was gone forever or someday it might return.
Yeah, and it was a little bit abrupt, and we still had things to do with the storyline, so that's why we're glad to be back and finishing out the storyline and making sure the people who wanted to see us the last time get a chance to now.
Nice, nice. Well, listen, before we get into all of the details, let's start from the beginning. Let's start with
Sure.
you. I know that you began in theater first as a light tech in a high school,
Yeah.
then majoring in theater in college. After that, I know you moved to Chicago where you spent 3 years as a company director. So, can you tell us a little bit more about these early days?
Yeah, funny story. I got into theater because I had a fear of heights in high school, and I decided the best way to do that would be to join the lighting crew and have to climb up in their 30-foot tall catwalks and things. And it was just a way for me to get over my fear of heights. And then, just fell in love with the technical side of theater, and then later on got into acting, sort of a jack of all trades kind of thing. Did it in college and then moved to Chicago, did a lot of stage management and writing and directing and acting uh, sort of thing. I didn't really find immersive theater until I moved to New York and was doing a number of interesting, weird attractions. Somebody, like a lot of people do, somebody drags you to sleep no more and suddenly go, oh, wow, this is a whole thing. But I didn't really get into escape rooms until 2015. I was the artistic director at that point of a company that was primarily indoor family entertainment, indoor paintball, laser tag, arcade stuff, and they had a single attraction called Zombie Experience, where they were taking their laser tag riggings and having you run around every Friday night with performers who were dressed up as zombies, and we had sort of an overarching storyline, but it was very much run around, shoot zombies, and that sort of thing. And I really kind of wanted to inject some. I took that show over when I started, and I really wanted to inject some more narrative and interesting stuff to it. And about a couple months into taking over as their creative director, they asked me, "Hey, what do you know about escape rooms? Because we really want to build one." And I said, "I know nothing, but I played a lot of Myst as a kid. So give me 2 weeks and some money to go buy some tickets so I can play what's playing around the city right now, and I'll come back to you." And very early on, we kind of hit on this idea of um, what if you did an escape room, but you put we had these actors who were working for us on a part-time basis, and we figured we throw them a couple more hours, and we decided early on, let's do this thing where we put actors in the escape room and let them really be part and parcel to the guide. That was the one thing that I felt was missing as I was playing in these other rooms, was that there was always just a game master who was talking at you a bunch and going, all right, here's the story when you walk in here. This is the thing that happened. You got to figure it out. Okay, bye. Very passive storytelling. It's sort of, you're always trying to figure out what already happened when you're in the room, and the interesting stuff has already happened, right? And I was very interested in, but what if the interesting stuff doesn't happen until the audience walks into the room? right? And how do we facilitate that? And how do we engage with them and have actors sort of interact with them? So that was kind of where we went from there. And that's kind of I stepped away from that company, but when that company closed in COVID, but I purchased the rights for those shows. And actually, the shows that are running at Doors of Divergence now are highly evolved versions of those shows. They've kind of been, those were the prototypes where we were playing around with a lot of the ideas. So you could say that Doors is actually the culmination of like 10 years of work now at this point.
Wow.
I've been kind of been developing these shows and reiterating and reworking them for over 10 years.
What would you say, how much escape rooms benefit when more theater creators and immersive designers enter the space?
Um, I think they benefit greatly. I think theater and immersive creators who are maybe coming from outside the escape room world are going to look at things in terms of full experiential design and are going to look critically at things like briefings and debriefings and where do I really start the experience and not just thinking about, well, what is my puzzle flow? How do I, make this look interesting? I think theatrical and experiential designers and immersive designers tend to look a little more critically at um, the overall sort of narrative and the storyline. Not there are some interesting techniques that I've seen by creators who come from a theatrical background that I don't see as often in other games that maybe people come from like a haunt background or things. It's very different, sort of very different angle.
What advice would you give to operators who want to push their experiences like deep into immersion?
I would say first off, just go see as many outside of escape rooms, as many immersive sort of experiences as you can. Take mental note of what the designers are doing to sort of craft the experience to guide the audience journey. Where does the experience start? In immersive theater, we often talk about the magic circle, the idea that where is the threshold that I'm stepping into, and where am I leaving the mundane, my real world, and I'm stepping into your experience, and where do you draw that line, right? A lot of times with escape rooms, it's I get walked up to the door, then I get a spiel by a game master, and then I step into the room. And that's a perfectly legitimate place to start that. But what happens if you expand it further out? What happens if when I step into the building, that's my crossing the magic circle? As soon as I'm in your business, now I'm in a different world. I'm in a different reality, right? I get to leave everything on the outside world. There's a lot of good reading, a lot of good sources out there. The Art of Play is a really good one by Gary Izzo for specifically crafting like immersive actors and improv scenarios and these sorts of things. The Art of Gathering is one that I've actually just recently read, all talking about how do you facilitate groups together for a purpose, and there's a lot of interesting stuff you can pull from sort of tangential experiential design books.
When you opened originally Doors of Divergence in New York, what was your vision?
I was really obsessed with the idea of creating a choose your own adventure style novel. I don't know which is more true, if it's because I really like audience agency and giving them choice, or because I have a really hard time picking which storyline I wanted to actually write. So I just decided let's do it all. We really wanted to focus on replayability. There was I remember believe I was at Transworld in Nashville back in like 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, where there was a panel talk, and the 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 discussion was essentially escape rooms aren't replayable. Don't try to make them replayable. And this is more based on a critique. At that time, there had been sort of a push by creators to make your game as hard as possible, so you can brag about only 10% of the people fully escape. And then you expect that people are going to want to come back and pay again to complete it. But the argument to that is that doesn't really work. Escape rooms aren't replayable. I'm not going to pay the same price to do 90% of the puzzles I completed before just to get the ending, especially if the ending's a bad payoff. But I took away from that is escape rooms are an inherently unreplayable form, and I'm going to prove that wrong, I think. That was kind of my goal at that point when I heard that talk. So we really wanted an experience that adapts with the player, that gives them a choice mechanic that feels comfortable and isn't too weird. So we relied on a lot of video game logic as well, of like, okay, you have a very clear choice here and here. But ultimately, the goal was, can we create an experience that people walk out of and two people can meet in the lobby afterwards, having both played the same game, have a conversation, and none of them can spoil anything for the other person? they can have two completely different, unique conversations, completely unique experiences. And then in talking to each other, go, "Oh, you did that? Oh, I did. I missed. Oh, okay." And then they both would want to turn around and play the game again because of just the FOMO of what the other person experienced. So that was kind of the goal.
Did you expect that it's going to resonate with enthusiasts as strongly as it did?
Honestly, no. I thought we were going to alienate a lot of people. When we first opened, we were given the advice to not even advertise this thing as an escape room, to focus on the immersive theater aspect of it. We were told, New York's an immersive theater town. Advertise this thing as immersive theater. Don't say it's an escape room. Get the word escape room out of your marketing entirely. And we did get some people that were, immersive theater folks, but the people that came in that were just immersive theater folks didn't understand what we were doing. They thought it was Sleep No More. They thought they could stand around passively to sort of wander, and they were waiting for things to happen. They didn't understand that, like, oh, this kids, and inevitably those groups would come in and they would finally understand. Well, now is the time that you interact with the room and solve puzzles. They go, oh, wait, this is an escape room. So that wool can only be pulled over the eyes for a certain amount of time, as it were. And then when we realized we sort of bucked that advice, we realized that, yeah, the escape room community was really responding well to it. They really seemed to like it. And I think the novelty of it, the replayability of it, is the thing that a lot of people focus on in the community for sure. But there were also people that came in who were escape room enthusiasts who did not like playing games with actors. They prefer a more standard experience. And I think I had heard time and time again people saying that we kind of changed their mind on that a little bit. And I think a lot of people come in, they go, I don't like games with actors, and it's like, well, more often than not, it's because you probably had a game where the actor wasn't, I don't want to say bad actor, but the actor perhaps wasn't leveraged properly, or the experience wasn't crafted around having an actor kind of added in, where that's just going to set you up for failure. We didn't expect as strong of a reaction from the escape room community as early on as we did. Very glad we did, and we've certainly had our champions in the industry, and we're very grateful for it.
I got lucky that I were able to play your game before it closed in New York. And you had two games at the time, but unfortunately, one was not available. And I think it's because the constraint with the actors. I don't remember what day of the week it was. I know we booked, and then when we wanted to play second game, you just didn't have anyone available to run it. And I think this is one of the bigger challenges you guys face with using actors. And it's not just one actor, it's multiple actors.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. So, and we were in New York, and there's a double-sided sword to that, which is we have a bevy of really talented actors. They also have a lot of opportunities to work. And so what we typically do is cast a company of actors so that we'll cross-train 2 to 3 people into every role so that we can sort of pull from an availability pool and make sure that we're usually covered. On your particular day, I remember it just happened to be somebody was out sick and I didn't have anyone available to cover, and it was just one of those things where our redundancies kind of failed, and it does occasionally happen. And that's the trick, is you can't always throw any game master into a thing. Somebody has to go through the rehearsal time and spend the time knowing not just the game in and out, but also the lines and the characters, and have a costume ready. So it is the way that we do it. It is a little bit more upfront investment in the product. It just kind of has to be.
From my experience owning escape rooms and running in different states, and owning some other businesses, I can tell you that training for escape room master, it's much harder than for any other attraction I ever owned. With your case, it's probably like twice harder, because it's not only you need to train them as a game masters, but they physically in a game, they need to know the script. And your games is so involved that it's on a different level of training.
Yeah. We did kind of give ourselves a fun little obstacle, especially by the time you get to Madness. I think Heresy is easier. It requires a little less training. And I do try to take the game master side of the burden off of the actors as much as possible by trying to design things as automated as possible. But they still have to understand exactly how the games work and how to reset everything and how to hint things properly. But by the time you get to Madness, there are 5 full storylines that could happen based on what they did in Heresy. They learned 5 different hour-long shows. But we do tell them, there's a 94-page script for Madness across all variables. But, the very first page of that script is, hey, this script is fully scripted and you can memorize all of this and perform it as written and be totally fine, especially if your audience wants you to sit back and watch. And that's totally a possibility they might do. But the audience is probably going to engage with you, in which case what this script is really doing is giving you a style piece and a tone piece, and so you understand like generally how long the scenes need to be and what the story beats are. But if you get through all of them with all your own words, that's totally fine. We expect it to be reactive and sort of adaptive. So it's more about learning story than it is the actual lines.
On the other side, I see the upside when we played your room is a lot of props that you have in a room is so fragile and so different, which I couldn't afford to have in my rooms without actors because they would be destroyed after a few weeks of use. But I think because you have actors who interact and who control the environment, you have ability to get away with it.
Yeah. We do give them the ability to sort of enter and leave the space at will and by need. We craft it with some interesting little hidden entrances and whatnot, and give them cues, so that they can fully black out the lights to cover their entrance and walk back in. And narratively, it makes sense for them just to be able to walk in and out of the space and always have something interesting to do. So when the game, in most escape rooms, if the game master is entering the room, it typically means you've done something wrong, and it's a bad thing. When game master for us, when the actors enter the room, it becomes like a magic moment. So it's a chance for extra narrative storytelling, which can also double as a, can I see that thing? Well, that's a very interesting prop. Blah, 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 blah. Maybe I should keep this for safekeeping because you were definitely about to throw it across the room. I just don't say that part. So that does give us a little more fine control, and actors are just and human beings are just better at controlling for that sort of thing than systems. So give them a hat and let them walk into the room is, I find, a better control for that kind of thing.
Talking about actors, I can tell you that before playing your game, I played only few with the actors. I always used actors doing introductions in character. It's my game masters, they in character, and I've been well known for doing that and kind of bringing this little extra. But then the way how you did it, it's like on completely different level, and I always was kind of like skeptical if it can work because some games I played with actors where they were out of place. They were there, they didn't know what to do. It became like kind of accurate feeling like why you here, I feel not comfortable with you around, and the actor feels the same way like why I'm here but I have to be here. But in your escape room the feeling was completely different, and I think this is the first time when we felt that they are in their place and I want to interact with them, I want them to be there, and it's so cool. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, we definitely design from a standpoint that the actors are going to be the cornerstone of the experience. So we know that the narrative can't happen without the actors in the room, and we know that interacting with the actors is the main sort of through line of the audience experience. There's a couple things we do to sort of help that. Our sneaky metagame on this is we want people who come into an escape room incredibly skeptical of actors and who don't like interacting with actors, who just want to go in and play puzzles. We want them to go into Heresy and have what feels like a slightly more traditional, compared to our other ones, experience of an escape room with an actor who is guiding their experience. But then by the time they get into Madness, it becomes more of an immersive play, and there are scenes going on. There's 2 actors with them interacting throughout, and the narrative is even more front and center. And then by the time they get to the third one, it becomes, you're not getting through this without interacting with actors. Like that's part of the whole mechanic. So we really want people to come in, they're like, I don't like immersive theater at all, to coming out of the end of the cycle and being like, I am ready to put on a costume to go do an immersive show. Like, let me go do a LARP, right? That's kind of, we want people to get trained into how to interact with actors and enjoy it, because we feel like a lot of times people's negative is just, either shyness or just having had bad experiences in the past. But, that the sort of the cornerstone of that is our bar space. So you don't go straight into the rooms. You come into, so like I was saying before about that magic circle, we start our magic circle earlier. You come into the bar space where you're going to meet a character behind a bar who's going to give you your orientation, but to explain to you the rules of the world. You walk into this bar where the time and space is broken, and it's sort of the meta narrative around everything. And because time and space is broken, nobody meets in the right order. So the bartender recognizes you as soon as you walk in, even though you've never seen them before because you're a first time player. And then it's, oh, I'm sorry, right? I know you, but I met you in your future timeline. But it's confusing. Sorry, let's start again for your experiences. Shall I introduce you? Okay, great. And so as soon as they walk in, they've got a character who's immediately their friend and is, on their side and is willing to engage with them and give them the rules, but in character and in a way that's engaging and is constantly a dialogue. So we want you to walk in and immediately be primed to talk to our actors, so that by the time you're going into our rooms and the actors are talking to you, you already know what this is. You understand this. You've gotten used to it. You've done your stretches basically, which then I think just helps facilitate the narrative, and it becomes a very active sort of narrative. And then the actors are asking you like, okay, what do you want to do next? This or this, that sort of thing. And and they're able to sort of facilitate and respond to you in a real way.
Well, you guys opened and it became a sensation overnight. And I know that you earned TERPECA recognition.
Yeah, so we opened and pretty quickly we had some nominators come in. I think anytime there's a new thing in the New York City market, because it tends to be a New York City as an escape room market, doesn't really have a lot of new stuff, new companies. So we were a new, interesting, weird thing in New York, which is great because other people are coming in for other immersive shows as well. But yeah, we got some early buzz, and then 2023. Madness was ranked number 39 and Heresy was number 169, I believe. And I do know that there was some discussion because we had a weird, um, compared to everything else, our product model is a little weird. How do you rate the show? Because if you've come in and you've played Heresy and Madness once, you've gotten one storyline with one certain set of puzzles, one certain set of characters. Um, but how does this person's rating of their playthrough of Heresy and Madness compare to this one? Because it could be entirely different. There's no connective tissue other than the set. So there was some discussion about how do you rate the shows? Do you rank the shows different? Do you weight the votes differently based on if they played once versus if they played multiple times? And I believe when they were voting for it, they had to indicate that. And I believe that was originally the plan, and they ended up just weighting all the votes the way that they were the same value. But I believe if they had weighted them differently to give more credence to people who had played multiple times, the shows would have ranked higher. And I believe Madness actually would have been like number 14 that year and would have been the number one in the country, which was insane to me. When I heard that, I kind of my jaw dropped. The jaw dropped. And I was like, that doesn't. No, wait, no, we just opened. What are you talking about? So I don't know. Clearly, what we're doing is resonating, and we're very excited to be back on board. And I'm very interested to see when we re-enter sort of the market in 2026, where that's gonna, if it, with even 3 years, I feel like the industry's changed so much that it'll be interesting to see.
Now, let's talk about what actually happened, why you guys had to close, because it was very abrupt. And there was players who I know planned trips around the experience. They wanted to come out and see you, and suddenly you guys were gone. And so it was like a shock in the community. So tell us what happened.
Yeah, so New York's tricky. New York's tricky to have property rentals and what have you. But when we were originally set up, we were part of essentially a trifecta between three companies. And the plan was that all three immersive companies would be producing productions under the same roof, the same warehouse in Brooklyn, to sort of, commonly share the overhead and all the other costs that would be usually too much for one company to deal with. So we were funded by a company called Future Proof, who had the lease on the building, and they and the plan had been that they would produce shows in 1/3 of the building. We would have 1/3 of the building, and another show called The Art of Killing It which was an immersive murder mystery show would have the last third of the building. So the plan would be that we would all three companies doing different takes on immersive theater, and we're doing an immersive escape room. Teoki is The Art of Killing is doing sort of a murder mystery, and then Future Proof is doing kind of very interesting, weird experimental stuff that changes on a faster rotating basis, and it just became an issue where all three of those tent pegs need to be up and fully running as revenue drivers. And I think it just became an issue where I think it was difficult for Future Proof to be both sort of running the operational side of things with the building as well as getting their own shows up. We were at a point we were covering our overhead, but with the other two shows running and everything, it just everything all the cylinders weren't firing after a certain point, and it just kind of required more investment in to cover the entire, full operation, and that money just ended up not being there anymore. It became unsuitable waiting for like the third side of the building to actually get a production up. It just didn't happen in time. So unfortunately, it was one of those things where if that leaves, we weren't leveraged in a way. We were only using a third of the building, and there was no way that we were going to be able to just take over that lease because the rent was far too high compared to what we were driving. It was way too big of a building for us. So we ended up having to just close everything up and then put it all in storage while we found a new venue.
Wow. It took quite a long time between you guys closed and now 2026. Tell us a little bit more what was happening during this time, what you guys were doing. Were you looking for spaces? Were you looking for opportunities? And why it took so long?
Yeah, we were looking for spaces where the price was right and the location was right, and that is very hard to find in New York. Yeah, the price per square foot for a lot of commercial space in New York is just way out of budget for a small independent company, and that was tricky. So we were looking around for spaces and funding opportunities. We did talk to some folks out in LA whether or not that would be a better market for it, but we couldn't really find a good fit there. We talked to a few other places. But over the last year, it was kind of one of those things where we also, I mean, speaking for myself, I also was fine for like the last year or so. We were looking nominally, but having it in storage kind of took a year to also just go and take a job as a build lead in an event studio and kind of just brush up my fabrication knowledge and do some stuff that I wasn't building stuff for me because it was the first time in like 10 years that I was in a shop building things, but not, for my own, projects. It was just for building stuff for clients. And you get the project, you get it built in 3 weeks, you get it done, and then your job is done, move on to the next thing, what have you. And just sort of a rapid pace kind of fast work, which it was, I think, good for me to just kind of take a little while and stop thinking about doors for a minute while we kind of let uh, kind of cast out lines to see what we could find.
Now, you keep saying we. So tell our audience who is we because you have a partner. And
Yes.
tell us more. How did you guys start working together? And after the closing and right now reopening, you still working together, which is like
Uh-huh.
surprise to me. So tell us more about that
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. So Zach McCurl and I are co-owners of Doors of Divergence. We opened this up. So I met Zach when I was still at the previous company where I was doing the laser tag paintball stuff, and was interviewing for a production manager to sort of come in and help with the shows we were running. Because at that point we had two full escape rooms and the weekly zombie thing, and we were doing starting to build out some other experiences. Um, and uh, funnily enough, because we were in the middle of rebuilding the sanatorium, and I had invited him to come in and interview, but I basically said the only day I have is next Thursday. To which he responded, "Next Thursday is Thanksgiving," uh, and I went, "Yeah, so it is. Okay, so how's 2 o'clock?" Basically. Yeah, and then stepped into the room. I was like, I got half an hour, but we ended up talking for about 3 hours on immersive theater and our thoughts about it and what have you. Where I had thought I was just going to find, I was looking for production manager. What I found was a a collaborator, and some of them I'm very comfortable with working with and pitching ideas and going back and forth and designing these things. And he and I step through and kind of talk through every aspect of every show as we design these things. So when I Survived the Room closed because of COVID, and I bought the rights, I felt like I had to call and be like, hey, once I had talked to the Future Proof company and we had a plan for bringing it back, I was like, okay, I've got this opportunity. How would you like to come in and sort of reinvent those shows we were working on? And kind of here's the new plan. He was all for it. So we've been working on Doors together since. So for the past 5 years now.
Nice. I played your escape room, and then sometime later, I've been opening an escape room in Phoenix, Arizona. We had some extra space, and I started looking for opportunities to potentially partner up with somebody. Or we got connected with Zach and started this conversation. We had a Quest video idea for that location, and it's like its own universe, and we were trying to figure out is there is a way for us to kind of marry these two ideas. But with the Quest video, you start in the lobby, and the idea is that you're working as employee in a movie rental place like blockbusters, and then you transition to experiencing the movie itself. We figure out that it's probably too far apart, especially with the fact that you guys have live actors and everything revolves around it, and then you have a bar that needs to be a centerpiece. But at the end, it just felt apart basically, and I'm like, oh, it would be so nice to work together, but eventually it didn't work out. And then we're like, okay, we just kind of parted our ways. How did we reconnect after some time?
Yeah, I remember you guys reached out and you were like, "We've got a line on this location in Charlotte, to rebuild." And I went, "Oh, that's interesting," and which was, kismet for me because my parents live here in Charlotte. I went to high school here. I was like, "Oh, I know, yeah, I know the area fine." Actually, there's a good, big, decent supply of actors out in Charlotte, and I know local theaters, and I have some connections there. And it also made sense from the more we started thinking about it, it made sense because Charlotte is a developing sort of area for escape rooms. You've got some Carolinas region in general. You've got three TERPECA ranked companies from this year that are in the area. The number one escape room in the country is Escape Artist Greenville now. Short drive out from here, and Keepers of Balance are the good friends over there, just as the crows flies from the other side of Uptown from us. We went, that actually could be a really interesting, fun market to enter into for people who want, some high quality, interesting takes on the escape room format. We came through, we looked at the space. I thought it was very interesting as well that the space that we're in is a former acting studio, which just felt like also good vibes. So once we kind of hammered out the details on that, we figured let's pull the trigger on this. So here we are.
I can tell you that I've been looking at multiple different states, not only escape rooms, but some other attractions to open. I've been looking at Florida, I've been looking at North and some other states. And when I heard that Keepers of Balance opening there, and I knew about Will and his location. It caught my attention, and I started thinking, this is probably the place where I really want to be. And this is for somebody who is listening and who may be just thinking about starting up. My idea was I wanted to be in a market with a strong competitors. And I don't think about it as competitors because I think it's actually anchor that brings enthusiasm, brings attention to the area. And this is why I got so excited when I learned about these multiple experiences who I know very, very strong and highly rated in the community. I was like, okay, let's explore and see if we can find something in Charlotte. The problem that we had with the Charlotte, it took me almost 2 years to find a spot. It wasn't even listed on the market. We reached out and got lucky and looked at the space, and I immediately brought it up to you and Zach. It was enough of square footage. It's almost 4,000 square feet, where it's big enough. It's not too big, but it's not too small. It's good amount of space that we can use. How did you decide, okay, I do want to work with Paranoia Quest, I do want to work with Dmitry and his team, and you didn't know about me? Like, tell me your thought process and research that potentially you did and background kind of you were checking, because it's a big deal It's a lot of money on the line and your name on the line.
Yeah, so my first thing was to just go and look at Paranoia Quest's existing works, and the big selling point for me was Quest Video and the way that that was sort of structured. This really cool idea of every game is a movie that you're going into, but the very first thing as soon as you walk in is you're immediately assigned the role of, oh, thank you for coming into this, place that's very evocative of a blockbuster. So you immediately get that nostalgia for a certain demographic. You know what that means. As soon as you walk in, you're like, oh, okay, I know what people do at a video rental store. And then you're asked, like, can you clean these up? And that becomes a way of onboarding. And then by the time you select the image, the tape, and then you go into the movie, it's a whole thing. And that was the first other real concrete example that I had seen where it was very similar to how we like to extend the magic circle and give you agency and give you an endowment as soon as you walk in. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, these guys understand it. These guys understand how to like extend the narrative out beyond just the modular part of the room and make the experience more cohesive and invite the audience into play. So that was the big selling point for me. I was like, from a design standpoint, you understand we're speaking the same language here. It's not, I don't have to explain the rationale behind why we do some of the weird stuff we do. So that was like my primary selling point. This makes sense.
This was first impression, how our relations developed from there. It's interesting to talk about it because a lot of people have a fear to work with the partners, and especially with somebody who they never knew. How do you determine, A, I don't want to do it by yourself, but I want to partner up with somebody? Tell us why you decided we need a partner and we want to work with a partner.
Yeah, I mean, for me as well, I think, at least speaking personally, I I've in the previous versions of these shows, I've worn a lot of hats in terms of the actual like fabrication, building things. The previous version of Doors, I mean, we had a scenic team and carpenters, but I was also going through and building all the show control, programming all the puzzles, doing the lighting, while also writing the scripts and rehearsing the actors and all that stuff. And there was a lot of hats that I was wearing, and for me, it was kind of a relief, and it made a lot of sense to work with, you know. Uh, you've got a good well of talented fabricators and scenic artists and designers and electrical engineers who understand escape rooms specifically. Whereas the problems that I've had in the past in building in New York is we had a lot of scenic artists who originally were doing stuff on Broadway, and we had to teach them, hey, there's a different set of skills you got to work when you're fabricating this, because you got to build it bomb proof, right? You got to have people pulling on things. We've got to deal with things that open and close and and motion, all that stuff, which is sometimes difficult for people who don't do cabinetry or what have you. Uh, and all of that stuff. And so for me, it was a big relief to be able to work with a partner who already has people who have those skill sets specifically aimed at escape rooms and have, a history of building some really good, high quality escape rooms. When I came through and played Zodiac, uh, uh, that was a big for me. I was like, oh, this is really well built. This is great. That means that there's less that I have to worry about personally, and more that I can sort of lean on other people to come in and help actualize the vision this time around, which was for me a big selling point as well.
And you're talking about Zodiac is our new game that we opened
Yes.
in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit more about original sets and games you had in New York. Now you're bringing them to North Carolina. Is it going to be better?
We're actually, taking that time to kind of rework the design a little bit as well with the sets and add a little extra panache onto them here and there. So it's interesting. I was talking about the other day is that this is now the fourth full build of the Hollow Sanatorium that I've seen since it was just called the Sanatorium in 2015, and you can see the evolution of it from each build and how it went from essentially being like a haunted house to now it's like a really sophisticated, feels real and solid and guttural and depressing in the way that you kind of want it to feel depressing, because it's a rundown asylum kind of thing. So it's sort of very much evolved over the years, and I think every time that we rebuild these things, I learn more lessons about how to make it. So I think if people are coming back having played the New York version, I think they're going to be in for a surprise as to it's going to feel even like more grounded, but also bigger in scale. So,
Yeah, that's beautiful. And this is the thing that I was wondering about, because I know that a lot of people are very excited about it, and I wanted to make sure that we mention that it's definitely gonna get much better, and we rebuilding a lot of puzzles to be more beautiful, more durable, more solid, and just so much better. So everyone
yeah.
will enjoy 100%.
Yeah.
We are looking to open, Christian, when?
March 6th will be the first bookable dates right now.
Perfect.
And if we get ahead of the timeline, if you can open some dates beforehand, that's going to be great. But right now, we're first bookable dates should be March.
March 6th. And Christian, how people can book tickets? Where can they find details?
Yeah, they can go to www.doorsofdivergence.com. Right now, there is a site there that's got an FAQ with it will answer all of your questions, and you can buy tickets right there, right now, starting today. And I'll consider this now. If you subscribe to our newsletter, you may very well get a promo code that'll be good for a percentage off of your for a ticket sale price. So. Can't wait to see everybody again, or for the first time, or if it's their first time, then again from the Paradox Bar perspective. It's confusing. Time is weird and broken here.
Christian, this has been an incredible conversation. Doors of Divergence made a huge impact in New York, earning recognition from TERPECA, and even through closure, it left a lasting mark of the immersive on the immersive community. Now, together with Paranoia Quest, it's coming back stronger, smarter, and more sustainable in Charlotte, and it's great news for the Charlotte. So everyone, keep an eye out on it. And this is not a standard escape room by any means. Christian, thanks for coming on the Attractions Inside podcast. And to everyone listening, subscribe, share, and we'll see you on the next episode.